Hi, fourth grade. We're going to do the first half of the review for Unit 1 test today. So we'll be working on page 37, 38, and 39. So the first question, you can see they're giving us a word problem. Anthony's family drives 659 miles from Miami to Atlanta. Then they drive another 247 miles to Nashville. How far does Anthony's family drive in all? So starting us off with a fairly straightforward word problem, remember to circle our numbers, underline any important information, and then reading it carefully, thinking about, are we looking for a larger number or a smaller number? Another way to think about this is, do we know the total? Do we know the big number? So off to the side, because we're going to be needing to do these models quite a bit, I'd like you to draw our comparison model. Okay, so hopefully you remember what this represents. This will be our big number. It'll be our total number in a math problem, and then when we're doing adding or subtracting. And then this will be the smaller number, and this is the difference between the two. The shape of this drawing doesn't change. It always looks like this, so it really doesn't matter if the difference is small or large. This is just symbolizing the difference between the two numbers. So let's look at this again. Do we know the big number? Do we know the total? We don't, right? Because they drove some this here and a little bit more here, but we don't have the total. So that means that this is going to be our blank. We could put a question mark here, but since we're in fourth grade and we're starting to work with variables and equations, we're going to put a variable there. Let's put D for drive. So go ahead and copy that into your book on page 37. Okay, so we have this. Now, for these two numbers, we're going to just choose the first one, 659, to go in here. And then 247 will be here. I see that this problem isn't really using like the difference or how much more than, but this model still works for that. So just notice that it can also be simply two parts of a whole. Okay, so what operation should we use? Well, first of all, we need to write an equation. So we're going to write 659 plus 247 equals D. Remember that when we're writing an equation, it's always horizontal. That means that it's always going in a line. It's a number sentence. We show our work by setting it up on top of each other, stacked vertically. But for an equation, we do it like this. Okay, we can do a comma here and then D equals. That'll be where we set up for our writing of our answer. And now, of course, we're going to show our work. I think actually I'm going to show my work over here. There's just more space over here. So I've decided that I should add those two together to get my total. Now some of you might be thinking, Miss Dye, I would have just done what you're doing now right at the beginning. Sure, and you would have gotten the right answer. But the thing is, in fourth and fifth grade and middle school math, you're going to be asked to show your work and draw models. So it's very important to get used to drawing these models. They'll be required all year. So when I teach you how to draw a model, make sure that you're using it in your SAB so that when it comes time to take a paper pencil test, you're able to draw it correctly. Okay, so it looks like I came up with 906. I'm actually going to write that down here. 906 miles. I'm going to move my D equals down there. Just using my space a little bit better there. Okay, so 906 miles is my answer. That was a one-step word problem. This next problem, it gets pretty complicated. It has a lot of steps. It actually has 4 steps because we have to do some math and then we also have to show our work. So the first thing I would like you to do is divide your square into 4 sections. All right, it says a scientist measures 3,470 milliliters of water into a beaker. She pours 2,518 milliliters of the water in a solution. If the beaker can hold 5,000 milliliters, how much water is needed to fill the beaker? Show your work, then show a way to check your answer. So she starts with this amount and then she pours in this amount. So she's adding those two together. So if we are thinking about, she starts with this amount and then she pours this out. She pours this out into a solution. I always have to read this one a couple of times. So we're going to start with 3,470. And if she starts with this, and then she pours this amount out of the beaker into a different solution, what operation should we use there? Subtraction. So go ahead and set that up. I'm going to have you solve that on your own today. Okay, once you have an answer there, how can we add to check? Because down here we're going to show adding to check. So you'll write this answer in the top of your addition problem, plus, I already wrote plus, 2,518 equals, and what do you think your answer should be down here? It should be that number. So if it is 3,470, then you've checked your work and you know that you are correct. If it's not, you've checked your work and you know you have to go back and look and see what your mistake is. So this number, once you have it, you're going to write it here. So if you remember when we add to check, we add up to check subtraction. It's just like we're taking this number plus this number to get that number up there. Okay, so that's the first step of our problem. We've done the math, we've added to check. Now, if the beaker that she's pouring things into can hold 5,000 milliliters, how much water is needed to fill the beaker? She's already put in the amount that we got here. I'm just going to go ahead and write that number in, fourth graders. I do still expect you to solve this though. So 952 milliliters she's already poured in. If it can hold 5,000, how much more is needed to fill the beaker? So we need to figure out how much space is there after the 952. And then you'll go ahead and subtract that. And again, you'll take this number plus this number, and you should get, what should you get if we're adding up to check? You should get the 5,000. If this problem seems quite complicated, it is, and if we were in class, we would be spending a lot more time digging into it, but I just wanted to show you so that you can spend some time on your own looking at it more carefully. And we'll also be looking at it in our small groups. Number 3, fill in the blank to show the number of hundreds. So this one is one that fourth graders often make an easy mistake. They look at here and they see, oh, there's a 5 in the hundreds place. But does this represent 5 hundreds? No, because then it would just be 500. It actually represents 45 hundreds. And the way that we would show we know that is we could say 45 times 100 equals 4,500. So that is showing how we know it, that, oh yeah, there's 45 100ths to get to 4,500. Okay, a mining truck is loaded with 147,265 kilograms of dirt. Another 129,416 kilograms of dirt is added. What is the total mass of the dirt? Don't get confused or tricked or sidetracked with kilograms and mass. Those are labels we'll use, but you don't have to really worry about what they mean right now. But I do want you to think, do we know the big number? We're going back to our model. Do we know our total? So I've drawn my comparison model here. Remember, this comparison model shows addition or subtraction. I can use it with either one. What do you think? Do we know the big one? Do we know the total? We don't. It's asking us for the total. So go ahead and fill in these two numbers down here. I'll let you do that on your own. And then because we have those two numbers, what equation are we going to write here? We're going to need to add them to get to the total. Remember, an equation has a variable. So what is the total mass? It's in kilograms, so we're going to put K. All right, on this one, fourth graders, I would like you to set this problem up and solve it, and then you can fill in the numbers on the comparison model there. Okay, this one, we've got a comparison problem. So it does say to show your work, and you're trying to figure out which store has more money. So when it says show your work, I do want you to write a comparison here. So we've got our circle, put one of the numbers on one side, the other number on the other side, and then you can fill in your comparison. And then remember what we talked about in small groups. When you're showing your work on something like this, I would expect you to write both numbers stacked on top of each other, just like we did in small groups last week. And then you can look at them starting from the greatest to the least. So looking at, oh, everything's the same in the hundreds, thousands place, but in the 10,000s place, I see a difference. And so I'm going to circle the number that is greater. Okay, selecting forms of 65,042, you need to just mark all that apply. So all of these would actually equal 65,042. Look at them carefully and see if you can figure that out. Would it be this one? No, because that would be 11 plus 0 plus 4 plus 2. That would never get that high. 65,042. Oh, okay, that says it in word form. I remember that, word form. 60,000 plus 5,000 plus 40 plus 2. Oh, okay, that looks like expanded form of that number. Excellent. 650,42. No, that would not be correct. All right, we have one more page on this to get us to our halfway point. So for these numbers, we're telling if the number is rounded to the nearest thousand or not. So it's just a yes or no. Let's look at this one first. If we were looking at 234,566 and we wanted to round it to the nearest thousands place, of course I would underline the 4 and then I would look to the right. The boss, the 5, would tell the 4 to go up to a 5, and then everything after the 5 would change to a 0. Everything before the 5 would stay the same. Yes, that is correctly rounded to the nearest thousand. So you can go through the rest of those if you have time and double check if they are rounded correctly. All right, and the very last section here, true or false, looking to see if these numbers really are greater than or equal as these symbols say. I'm going to keep this video as short as possible, so I'm going to go ahead and end now. You'll be doing a review online assignment with this half, preparing for the test. Thanks, fourth grade.